All right, y'all. Let me add one thing here. Okay. Um, I love this concept. Test, iterate, optimize, systematize, outsource, scale. Test, iterate, optimize, systematize, outsource, and scale. This is basically the formula to um like every aspect of our business is a system, right? And we have to eventually, the goal is to outsource, optimize, and then scale every aspect of the business. And this is a formula to do that. So whether this is in your marketing, whether this is in your lead generation, whether this is in your sales process, whether this is in your fulfillment process, whatever, this is the formula to do that at every aspect of the game. So, let me just take this step by step. And what I'm going to use for this, guys, is actually LinkedIn outreach, right? And optimizing and then scaling your LinkedIn lead generation outreach process, right? So, first is test. I'm starting and wanting to generate leads on LinkedIn. Cool. I'm going to test. Well, what am I going to test? I'm going to test the different functions that are needed to make that process work. So, LinkedIn outreach, for example, outreach in general, I'm going to test who I'm targeting and I'm going to test the messaging that I'm targeting them with, like the copy, and then I guess you can test the amount that you're sending at, right? Which on LinkedIn you're maxing out every week. So I start by testing. Now I test copy, uh, who I'm reaching out to, targets, all that stuff, and number, and I track the data. Then what I do is after a week or two or a month of testing, I come back and I look at the data and I iterate, right? So let's say I reach out to three different targets: HR, learning and development, DEI, and what I saw was the DEI, and I did three different copies, whatever. What I saw was the DEI and the learning and development folks had a higher positive response rate with a certain type of copy than the whatever HR folks. Cool. Then from there, I'm going to optimize. And I maybe with my optimization process, I'm going to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually even double down a little bit. I'm going to double down on this messaging that's working with the L&D and the DEI folks. I'm going to optimize by actually cutting out the HR folks. We're not going to spend time on them because the data is telling me that it probably doesn't make sense to do that. And I'm going to try that. And then I'm going to start optimizing. And now I'm tweaking. I'm iterating and optimizing. That process kind of happens together where you're iterating and optimizing, right? This process. Then once I get to KPI, like, hey, man, I am getting good positive responses. I am booking calls. Like, these two targets are working. This messaging is working to a reasonable KPI. And, if you have questions on KPIs at different aspects of the game, like you guys can ask us, like, hey, is this good KPI? Am I doing good here? Usually sometimes we need that external perspective to, hey, is this like doing good? Like, hey, yeah, your content's crushing, like scale it, right? Then I'm going to start systematizing it, right? So, and again, you guys start to get a feel for this and you'll start to like you'll know when you start to have a process down. You know what I mean? Like you'll know when something's starting to rip and you're like, and it's funny we're using LinkedIn outreach because this is something where like really like we're cracking it here. And like it's such a good feeling because you often spend so much time iterating and optimizing and testing that like it can just, I mean, we did this with our sales process, I did this with LinkedIn outreach, like it can just kill you. And you when you get from like optimize where you're now ready to systematize and outsource, is a beautiful feeling because it's like, oh, like we've dialed this. Like me being in here has dialed this, and I'm getting ready to release this and systematize, outsource it, and then being able to scale it. And it's like super dope, right? So now you systematize. So you start to create SOPs around it. If you have a team who should be SOP minded, you can have them create SOPs around what's working, and then you outsource it, right? So we systematize LinkedIn outreach, like we have it documented, SOP'd. I've outsourced it to a VA. Now we're getting to the point where we can scale. Okay, sick. We've got optimized up to KPI from one LinkedIn account. We are producing meetings. We are on KPI. All of our KPIs we're hitting. Scale the shit out of it. You know what I mean? And as you scale, like do it tactically. Don't scale like a crazy amount and then, run into where make sure that as you scale from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5, 10 LinkedIn accounts, whatever it is, make sure you're staying at KPI. So you're datatizing everything, which we'll talk about, later, and you're looking at the numbers and everything's good. But then you scale it. And again, now you have a scaled out process that's outsourced that you're not involved in. Last thing I'll use is our speaker scale LinkedIn outreach process. We went through this whole process year and a half ago, whatever. I'm at the point now where like I don't even calls just get booked onto our calendar and it's like it's stupid. We book so many calls like while I'm recording this video. It's outsourced. I don't even touch it. I don't respond to anyone on LinkedIn. We run from 3 or 4 LinkedIn accounts and we book 20 calls a week, 20, 25 calls a week, hands off. I don't even touch it. And I pay what, $500 for my team to do that monthly, which is a fantastic investment because it brings me a lot more back in terms of closed deals. So that is a process. It's a beautiful thing. When you get from that iterate, optimize, test phase into systematize, and you're ready to outsource and scale. It's a beautiful thing. Let me know if you guys need help at any point in this process. And yeah,